Hi everyone, welcome to Lunch Hour Lessons with Allison. I'm Allison Mädl and today is August 14th, 2019. Every week at 12:30 I come to you live to introduce a topic related to nutrition and health that I think is interesting and give you a topic to take with you into your daily life. If you like what you hear, feel free to comment or like this video. And as always, I post a transcript of each lesson on my blog at allisonmadel.com. This week's topic is my experience with the GAPS diet. So I'm going to take you back, before I launch right into my experience, I'm going to take you back to November of 2010, which is when I started on the path that would eventually lead to my current profession as a nutritional therapy practitioner, or NTP. And as it is with so many people who become certified NTPs through the Nutritional Therapy Association, I came into this field through really a desperate quest to resolve my own troubling health concerns. For many years before that moment in 2010, I had suffered what I now know was reactive hypoglycemia, along with what I definitely knew back then to be recurrent yeast infections. And the yeast infections eventually became so frequent that the only days that I didn't have the itching and burning and discomfort was when I was on my period. And no amount of Monistat or prescription medication would help. So it was really a frustration, and I felt desperate because there were no options left for me at that time. Kind of at the same moment, one day my husband came home from the health food store and he brought home a gallon of raw milk, something that we'd never had in our house before, but which he said he drank as a child growing up, and he was excited to try it again. And I read the label on the back, and it said something to the effect that the enzymes and the probiotic content of the milk was helpful for people who wanted to heal their gut. And I had never heard of the phrase heal your gut before. And again, this was back in 2010, and the importance of digestive health just wasn't as well known then as it is today. And slowly we're starting to bring it more into the mainstream. So I Googled that phrase, heal your gut, and I came across a book called Gut and Psychology Syndrome, and it was written by a neurologist named Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. It uses the acronym GAPS for short, and outlined a specific diet and protocol for healing and pretty much like a therapeutic dietary protocol. And all of a sudden, I became really obsessed with learning more. And it was really a singular moment that immediately shifted me into a new way of thinking about my body and my health. The past decade of scientific research on the gastrointestinal system does demonstrate that there is a strong connection between the brain and our small intestine, or gut for short. And the GAPS diet is a protocol that heals the gut to relieve what are generally thought to be psychological issues like autism, ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and even schizophrenia. And even though I wasn't experiencing any of these conditions, I thought, let's just keep looking into it. And I started reading about how the GAPS diet was focused on eliminating various types of sugars specifically. And I knew that sugar is a food for yeast, and I was having a yeast overgrowth. So I wondered if following the protocol could also reduce my yeast infections. But I wasn't clear how the sugar that I ate could affect, the overgrowth of yeast down there. And it turns out that everything is connected. So yeast and bacteria migrate all over our digestive tracts, and our digestive tract has two ends. One is the mouth and one is the genital area. And if there's an imbalance in the digestive tract, and some yeast that would normally be there in small quantities, like Candida albicans, which is generally the yeast infection yeast, if they get out of control and they start overgrowing, they can end up in either of these two places. And in the genital area, for women, we call it a vaginal yeast infection. And in the mouth, it's often called oral thrush. And I learned that I needed to correct the imbalance in my digestive tract. And one way to do that would be to eliminate the certain types of sugar that the GAPS diet focuses on. And guess what? I did the diet and it worked. And I haven't had another yeast infection since 2010. So woohoo, that was very exciting. But I will say, however, that at the time when I sort of launched into this dietary protocol, totally uninformed besides just what I was reading, And it was very complex. Nutrition and food science wasn't something that I understood at the time. I really stayed on the diet longer than what was necessary for my own situation. I kind of ignored, or really ignored, some of the negative reactions to certain foods that were on the allowed list, because the positive reaction of the yeast infections going away just convinced me above everything else that I should just keep pushing forward. So I know now that, and this is a lesson, kind of really the lesson of the message for today, is that a diet that's therapeutic should, after a short period of adjustment, only make a person feel better and better. Therapeutic diets are meant to be short-term and then allow reintroduction of other foods. And that would be the same for the GAPS diet. For the psychological conditions that the protocol was originally written for, Dr. Natasha recommends to stay on the diet for up to 2 years to fully heal. And when I read that at the time, I took it to mean that I also should do the protocol for 2 years. But after a year and a half, I was just noticing more negative symptoms than positive ones, and was eventually convinced to stop the protocol. Later, a little piece of the puzzle, I figured it out. I learned that I have sensitivities to foods like onions and garlic and fermented foods, which are included abundantly in the GAPS protocol, which is why I wasn't feeling very well following it. Removing the sugars helped, but the inclusion of some of these foods that could have been healthy for some people really wasn't healthy for me. So it was really a lesson for myself in bio-individuality, which is something that as an NTP, I really know now to employ with my clients. So if this is a subject that interests you, perhaps you have children with some of these psychological disorders that are mentioned, or you have gastrointestinal distress, IBS, SIBO, and it's something that you're looking to investigate, I would really recommend that you get a copy of the book Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. You can get it on Amazon and learn more about it. I'm not going to go into all the details of what the GAPS diet entails here because it's quite extensive, but just know that it's a protocol, removing certain foods, introducing other healing foods, and then a way to kind of move back into a more balanced diet. You can also contact me and we can decide if it would be appropriate, something that you might want to follow or for your children. So that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to tell a friend this week's lunch hour lesson, which is: therapeutic diets are powerful. Always keep track of your reactions to inform your next steps. Again, therapeutic diets are powerful. Always keep track of your reactions to inform your next steps. Thank you for watching. You can like my page to get the weekend tip that comes out on Saturday morning, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.